Hello everybody and welcome back to the Ōkami walkthrough. So, we saved the Emperor in Sei-an City. And the Emperor is now going to, tell us important stuff. He's lost his memory because he was possessed entirely by Blight, but now we can actually do stuff to help. So we also rescued Kaguya and, yeah, Queen Himiko's being absolutely useless. But you should make sure to remember the one thing that the Emperor did point out, which was something to do with a sea of fire. We're going to need something to deal with that, I think. But what's really fun with the Emperor is that he is a demon fang trader. And you can get a whole bunch of goodies from him. One of the most helpful is the Fog Pot, which allows you to use the brush technique, Mist Warp. I believe this is the first instance of us getting an upgraded brush technique. And there are a number of them throughout the game, but this one is incredibly useful. Because what it allows you to do is to go to a Great Origin Mirror, so the big ones with the crosses on them. And if you draw a cross whilst you are on the Great Origin Mirror, you can warp to any other Great Origin Mirror that you have already visited. So now, if you don't want to, you simply do not have to use the Mermaid Springs. There are a few instances where it's better to use the Mermaid Springs than it is to try and do the Mist Warp. For instance, for us to get to the next location after this part, we're going to use the Mermaid Springs because there is no Great Origin Mirror anywhere in Sei-an City, which is kind of frustrating, but oh well, it happens. Now, we've got some information about the Emperor in the art book. As soon as I can find him, wherever he's hidden away. And there he is. So, this character has a treasure ship motif. His clothes are gold with a monogram design, his eyes are gold pieces, and he was designed to be a selfish character who had eyes only for gold, but he turned out to be a pretty nice guy. So, you've got the treasure ship on his head, which I believe is in some parts based on the sunken ship that we visited. The kanji that's on his fan says felicitations, and oh, there's all sorts. When they first designed him, he had a ship going around his middle, a diamond on his head, and yes, it was all incredibly rich. It didn't change a whole lot come the final design, but they added much more prominent demon fangs and so on and so forth. Now, once we leave the Emperor's Palace, then we will get to see Kaguya again, hopefully. But obviously, we have to escape. And now that we've healed Sei-an City, the music is actually really wonderful. Apart from when you get, like, Kaguya's theme come in and just be quite sad. But, yeah, we are actually reaching near the end of Kaguya's arc. Very soon, her story is going to be finished. Which is just really, really sad. So yes, as you have just found out there, Kaguya isn't Mr. Bamboo's real granddaughter. And woke up in the Bamboo Grove. This is basically recounting the tale of Princess Kaguya. So, if you hadn't figured out that this is what this was all about before, I mean, you should do, considering, the Kaguya and the bamboo cutter. If you know your Japanese folk stories, you should recognise this from a mile off. But it's going to reach its conclusion. Basically what she's telling us is we've got to go to Sasa Sanctuary. And as soon as we have finished up here in the aristocratic quarter of Sei-an City, that's exactly where we will be going. Now, there are a few things we can do in the aristocratic quarter. The main thing that you are really desperately going to want to do is to bloom all of the trees. Partly because, I mean, the amount of praise you are going to get from doing that is quite a lot in the grand scheme of things, because there are a lot of trees in this place. And how did you know it was the Emperor? Now. But yeah, so our next job after dealing with Kaguya is going to be trying to sort out the water dragon. And yeah, she was just repeating dialogue at that point, so it was just like, right, nope, skip. But I believe... Oh yes, seeing as we've got the exorcism beads, we can upgrade them and equip them, because that's important. We'll be getting some more of the holy artifacts from the Emperor by the time... well, when we get enough demon fangs to be able to do that. Because at the minute, yeah, we don't have enough. I thought I potentially would have enough to get everything, but that turned out to simply not be the case. Which was really depressing, to be honest. Because I'm pretty sure that it is possible to get enough demon fangs to cover everything. You've got to be doing pretty damn well in your demon fang collecting, but obviously didn't quite work out for me, unfortunately. So, whilst we have a little run around the aristocratic quarter, it's worth bringing up some of the stuff that's in the art book. So, when discussing the aristocratic quarter, unlike the little villages where people live a slow and quiet life, I wanted the city to feel like a bustling metropolis brimming with life. Graphic limitations, however, restrict the number of characters that can be displayed at any given time, so we stretched our rather pitiful ingenuity to its limits and dispersed the houses, and strategically placed citizens to give the illusion of overflowing life. And I think they did a pretty damn good job. I mean, it works a hell of a lot more in the Commoners' Quarter, because there are actually a load of citizens in the Commoners' Quarter, but it kind of shows off the aloofness of the aristocratic quarter, shall we say. Because, like, they're all the rich people, so there's bound to be less of them than there are poor people in the city. Now, I don't think I've got much else I can point out for the time being, because a lot of the stuff to do with the houses is related to the Commoners' Quarter. There's one point about Himiko's mansion which we will be visiting after a little bit of running around being a lunatic, but I'll leave that until we actually see Himiko's mansion. Because that is the point at which it will become important to us. So, basically the main thing that you're just going to be wanting to do around the aristocratic quarter is kind of have a chat with people, bloom those trees, find some clovers, the dig spots, That's generally about it. There are a couple of chests hidden about. And you can actually go fishing with Benkai. So now that everything is all healed up, he has moved from his spot on the bridge to a little pool, which is sitting in the top of the area. Yeah, as you can see, there are a lot of trees about. And you can probably also see that my Wiimote is starting to go on the fritz again. It only gets worse from here on out. Also, I think I just missed a tree. Thank God for that. Like, for a minute there I thought, oh my god, I missed a tree, didn't even go back for it. Oh, I am a failure. But thankfully I spotted it and went through that same exact thought process. Because you could see, I stopped and was just like, did I just see a tree? I should probably try and deal with that. Yeah, annoyingly there is so little to do in the aristocratic quarter. I mean, once you've done the battle with Kamuso, and you've done the natural, well, the dungeon to get to the Emperor, you've done all that. The only important things left in this area are Benkai, the Mermaid Shrine, and Himiko's Palace. Also, my Wiimote was really hating on me at this present moment in time. I was just like, why are you freaking out? You're not on low battery, because I've tried that. It's just like, just, why won't you work? It was driving me up the wall. But at least you get to see what happens when a Wiimote doesn't exactly play ball. And I'm going to have to attempt, arguably, the most difficult, one of the most difficult challenges in Ōkami, with this handicap. So that's going to be fun. But I feel I should point out that we're not really going to be progressing the plot a whole lot for a little while. The reason for that being is that once you have rescued Sei-an City, a lot of optional quests open up. So I mean, that's basically the entirety of this part. Get a bit of plot for the next part, and then we have like 2, 3 full parts of dealing with the stuff in the Commoners' Quarter. Because there is a lot of stuff going on in that Commoners' Quarter that needs dealing with. And it's insane how much there really is. Thankfully, out of that, we do get to go exploring new areas, and it gets all quite exciting. But, once again, when we get to the new area, there's a lot to explore. So, it's just like, in a way, the game kind of slows down at this point. I mean, you're pretty much reaching the midpoint. And I think that on a technical level, we are about halfway through the story now. Like, if you go in terms of how many parts this walkthrough is, or will be at the point of this going up, we are very much halfway. Also, just in terms of kind of, if you follow my scheme of splitting the game up into thirds, and then splitting those thirds up into thirds, we are basically in the second third of the game at present. And we have, well, basically because we have 2 dungeons left. One which it's going to take us a while to get to, and the other which will appear very soon after that one. So it's a bit lopsided, but I think we'll cope. Now, if you didn't do all your fishing in Agatha Forest, you are going to be able to get, I believe, all of the fish that you could get in Agatha Forest in Sei-an City. So if you missed any, don't worry, you can still get them all here. There are also Sei-an City specific fish, so you're going to have to do them yourself. But it's nice that they kind of didn't completely block off all those fish from you, because that would have been a really, really evil point of no return. Because it's like just a mini game, you kind of don't tend to think about there being a point of no return for it. Or at least you don't tend to think that you're ever going to be prevented from doing it. And in the case of the majority of RPGs and most games, you are never prevented from accessing mini-games. If they are kind of a big, or at least partially accessed during the game. Or, I mean, the only exception to that would be if they are those one-of-a-kind mini-games where they happen once and then never again. But I've just been babbling. You see, this is the stuff that tends to happen when you're just dealing with side quests and haven't really got new areas to explore, and really, I probably should have sped all this up. But you see, that's the thing with learning new editing tricks. Sometimes you don't realise that you can do stuff until a lot later on. And I'd say that this in particular is one of the instances where I'd wish I'd learned that technique sooner. Because it would have been incredibly helpful to me. I mean, particularly for a part that's coming up soonish. And by soonish, it's going to be like over a week or 2 before you see it, but it's still soonish in the grand scheme of things. Because that one's going to be a lot of exploring, and I could have sped it up, and I didn't know that I could. So that was slightly depressing. Now, what's really frustrating here is that there are a bunch of chests hidden in the river. Well, the canal is probably more accurate. And yeah, you can get them out, and that's all good, but spotting them sometimes is just a little bit of a bugger. Oi! We're no dirty dog, thank you very much. We're perfectly clean, we've been in water and everything. But I do really like the kind of juxtaposition of those two characters. You've got the woman who hates dogs and the guy who absolutely loves dogs. I have no idea how they succeeded in forging a successful marriage, because you would have thought he would have been like, I want to get a dog, and then she's just going to be like, no, don't want a dog. Dogs are disgusting. And you think at some point it'd be make or break in that situation. But they seem to have managed a decent job of it, considering they got a kid out the deal, so it's all good. Now I think it's at this point that I'm going to save, or... yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing at present. Oh, now I remember. So, there is a stray bead hidden off the bridge. Basically, you have to jump into the water and run about and find it. Annoyingly, it's a bit difficult to spot because of the wonders of draw distance. And, oh my good god, it frustrated the hell out of me, this. Really, what I should have done is left it until I had the ability to run on water, because, I mean, that would just make this job so much easier. But no, decided to do it now and show that you can do this if you want to. And I feel I should point out that the chest is to the right of where we're facing right now. I was just being a little bit of a div in following directions, really. And there it is, but it's so mean, because it's just like, how the hell am I meant to spot that from a distance, or know that that's even there? Because, like, I will give the game its dues when the majority of the treasure chests in the game are easy to spot, or there is an easier way to spot them. But that one, that's just mean. Now, technically I probably should have just swam or rowed on lily pads to the end there to get out, but I was just like, you know what, it's just quicker to drown. Which is a very morbid thing to say when you think about it, but in game context it makes perfect sense. He says with a slightly concerned frown. Now, if you try to get into Himiko's palace right now, the guards will try and stop you, but if you Veil of Mist, you can get through. Pretty much whenever you want to get into Himiko's palace, that is how you're going to get in. I mean, you might as well use new brush techniques. So, I said I was leaving stuff to talk about Himiko's palace until I got there, so we're there now, so let's go for it. So, there's the initial thing for Himiko's mansion. The drawing is titled Himiko's Mansion, but it was created very early, and once it was decided that the more important the resident, the higher the roof, this design was dropped. But since the 3D model was created as part of the training process for new staff members, we decided to use it as Princess Fuse's house, so as not to be wasteful. So, the original Himiko's Mansion turned into Fuse's house, which is really cool. Then you get Himiko's Mansion 2. Himiko was originally set to grant audiences in an open room like the one depicted in this concept drawing, which is basically like the front area of where we're going to be. But finding that a little boring, we expanded her mansion vertically, installed an elevator, and put Himiko's chamber in the farthest reaches of her mansion. These large-scale follow-up alterations are the reasons why the rest of the staff thinks we are the source of all their woes. And in some ways that is probably true. I mean, if you think about it, if the art team decides to create new fantastical things, somebody's got to model it. Somebody's got to implement it into the game, whether that includes new loading times and all sorts. So, in a way, they kind of are the devil and the source of all woes when it comes to game development. In reality, that's probably not quite the case. They are incredibly necessary and incredibly helpful, because without them you wouldn't be getting such wonderful designs now, would you? But yes, there's very little else we can do in Himiko's mansion right now. There's a little something that we need to get to be able to make any sort of progress. So we will be doing that shortly. But first, I believe we've got some treasure to find. Basically, if you go into this room, and I believe on the other side as well, there are little treasure rooms where you can get all sorts of goodies. I believe there's one which you may not necessarily need to go to now, because you will be visiting it later. But other than that, I think we're perfectly fine. I believe it's this room that's the one that you're going to visit automatically at some point. But I mean, if you want the money now, it's here. So why the hell not use it? And I mean, the reason that I will point out that you probably should leave it until a little bit later is because that northern land is a little bit of a spoiler, in a way. Not a huge spoiler, but a little bit of one, I think. I can't remember what's in that scroll. But either way, we're not looking at it right now, so it doesn't really matter. What we are going to do, however, is go to the Mermaid Spring and warp to Sasa Sanctuary, because I'm sure Kaguya will have gotten there by this point, and I think it's worthy that we go and visit her, really. After all, she probably needs our help, so be a good idea, I think.